welcome back to the Camino Cafe podcast. I'm thrilled that you're here, and I have a really exciting guest for you today, and that is Rebekah Scott. She is, well, a Camino icon, a Camino legend, but most importantly, a Camino pilgrim. And she is the author of the book, Furnace Full of God, and I'm thrilled to announce that it is our second selection for the Santiago de Compostela book club, and she will be attending our meeting that is coming up on September 16th. Please, if you haven't joined our Facebook group, please do so you can register for the call. It's going to be really fun talking about our book. It's one of my favorite Camino books, and I am so excited that she has agreed to be a part of the second meeting for the book club. Today, we played 20 Camino questions, and it was such a great conversation. I can't wait to share it with you. It was hard to limit it to 20 questions, so I'm sure I went way over, but I think you're going to really enjoy hearing about her life. She's lived in Spain now for 17 years. She has done so much work for the Camino. She hosts pilgrims in her home. She does it all. So I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation I had with Rebekah. And if you haven't read her book yet, A Furnace Full of God, you still got another week or so. And even if you don't finish it in time for the book club, please still come. She is so entertaining. She's got a lot of great stories, and I think you'll just love meeting her. All right, let's get to Rebekah. Rebekah Scott, you are here for 20 Camino questions. I don't know how to narrow it to just 20 when it comes to you, but we'll do our best. Are you ready to play?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Okay. You have one of my favorite all-time Camino books, the memoir, A Furnace Full of God. Can you give us just a 30-second kind of recap of what it's about?
Well, this is the book right here. You can get it on Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah, it's about me and about my husband and about Moratinos, the town where we live, and what brought us to this place 17 years ago, and the life that we live here as strangers among some farm villagers. There's 17 of us, 22 of us now. And what it's like to live here with these people and with the constant parade of pilgrims coming through as well. And life as pilgrim hosts in a private home and in a little town full of characters. Yes. So that's the story. That's the book. It's not your usual no. Camino book, because it's static. It doesn't move around. Yeah, it's in one place, but it's a Valentine. It was written from the heart.
A Valentine, yes. That's what I always tell everyone. It's part memoir, part about you living there, part about you walking. It has everything, and it's a wonderful book. Wonderful. Now, you were asked to actually translate a really important Camino book. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That one is called The Great Westward Walk, otherwise known as El Gran Caminante. It's written by a Spaniard who grew up in the Camino family. His dad's family lived right on the Camino. His mom is Basque, and they live up in the Basque country. And he grew up doing Caminos, and he was a very athletic young man, biked all up and down the Via de la Plata, and was a great, talented writer, and wrote about it. And he was convinced by a friend of mine to write his story about this Camino he had walked from home up in the Basque country all the way to Santiago. And then about halfway through the writing of this book, the man found out that he was going to die. He had ALS. So the book itself is a real lovely piece of writing. It's as close to literature as the Camino has made so far. Yeah. But it was all in Spanish, and it was a bit garbled when I got my hands on it. I was asked to translate it. I'm a book editor for a living. I'm not a translator, and my Spanish is very questionable at times. But I took it on as sort of a labor of love and as a favor. And it kind of took on a life of its own. And it's a bestseller here in Spain, and it continues to do very well because it's a classic. It's a very good book. And I'm very proud to be a part of it.
I agree. And I'm so glad you translated it, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, you also are part of a big project. You were the CEO and founder of Peaceable Projects. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that is?
Oh, well, it's the kind of the North American presence on the Camino Frances itself. I'm North American, my husband is English, but I'm kind of, for a long time, we're kind of recruiting people from different parts of the world to come here and help us out on the ground, and very much on the ground projects, literally picking up trash.
Yeah.
One of our kind of flagship things is a week in November with volunteers who come from all over, and we pick up trash for 100 kilometers of Camino, different places where there's a problem. And that's called the ditch pigs. But the other things we've done in the past is we find a problem or a place that needs a new roof or an emergency refrigerator or tires on the car, and they don't have the money to do it. So I'll go online and ask the people who are in my circle, and bang, the money arrives and the problem gets solved. It's really amazing how generous people really are. These people who have a relationship with Camino, and they really help to solve these problems. It was a great help during COVID, and it continues to be a help with a lot of people who are still struggling post-COVID.
Yeah. What's one of the projects there that you're most proud of that's been completed because of people donating?
Well, the fact that Santa Cruz in Sahagún, which is right up the road from me, good friends up there, is still open and operating because of the help of these people. Their plumbing needed to be completely replaced, and then for thousands and thousands of euro. The sisters who live there, their mixer broke, and they support themselves making cakes and cookies. They needed an industrial mixer right now, and we asked, and people, thousands of dollars for an industrial mixer, and they came right through. And
amazing.
so, yeah, the place is very happy now, and I just love going there. They're happy people, and they're welcoming pilgrims every day. And
wow. Now, you do so many things on the Camino. And one of the big things I think you're known for is the Hospitalario Training for the albergues through the FICS. Could you just touch for a few seconds on your work there?
Well, I don't train hospitaleros. I place them. We have three albergues, one in Grotto up on the Primitivo, one in Confranc up on the French border on the Aragonese in the mountains, and the other one is in Nájera, right on the Frances in La Rioja, an old scruffy place that's kind of taken on a new life. And that is a full-time job. If I had known it was going to be this much work, I probably would have said no. But it's just staffing it and keeping it staffed.
Just staffing it.
Yeah. And making sure that we have the beds aren't falling down and people aren't killing each other. It's a big job, and the organization in charge is very active. We're trying to redesign our training as well, so that all of the hospitaleros and the people who work with pilgrims know what is the Camino, what is a hostel, and what is a albergue, and about how to treat each other. And that maybe the biggest and most scary thing is what's a pilgrim and what's a pilgrimage, and what is the Camino. And that
now I gotta say, the three albergues that you just mentioned are probably three albergues that I hear the most about, which is really interesting to me. And I just wonder if people did want to volunteer, is the Hospitalario training through the FICS, or could they use the training they received through, say, like APOC or another organization? How would they volunteer for one of those three?
Well, what they do is they get hold of me. A lot of people have already been trained, or they've already volunteered somewhere. And we've for the last several years, we have put people on the job training if they have no experience. And they serve alongside an experienced hospitalero and learn that way. Right now, we are forming up a new training program. Cool. Not quite sure how we're going to execute it overseas yet, but it's in information as it is right now. People just get hold of me and I plug them in somehow, and those are very excellent places, and it's because somehow our volunteers are almost always very high quality, very excellent people.
Yeah, the people I know that have volunteered, I would agree. They're just really, really great pilgrims. Okay, so Rebekah, why did you move to Spain in the first place?
Well, I kind of fell in love with it. I
Yeah.
fell in love with Spain, and I fell in love with the Camino just about the same time.
Mm.
But I think Spain is so much bigger than the Camino. There's so much more
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
And I was in America, and this is a long time ago. I've been in Spain for 17 years, so it's like ancient history now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was just burned out I was a daily newspaper journalist, and I was really very burned out. My husband was too. We were ready to move on. And he'd always wanted to retire to Spain. And I always thought the Camino was so cool. So, well, why don't we retire to the Camino? We didn't want to, we were hospitaleros, volunteer
Okay.
hospitaleros, but we didn't want to have an albergue because we knew how much work it was.
Yes.
And no, we want to retire. We don't want to be slaving for 24 hours a day. But anyway,
Yeah.
we found a village here it was a long process. It's in the Furnace Full of God.
Yes.
How we kind of spent an entire summer volunteering at places we knew we liked, and seeing where we fit. And we found this place kind of accidentally.
Yeah.
And it spoke to us. And we came here for a big party, and they showed us this house, and wow, it was love at first sight.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how amazing you live right on the Camino Frances, but you do live in a section that, sometimes people are nervous about walking. They're told to skip it. What do you say to people who don't want to walk that section?
Well, if you're going to walk across America and you're going to tell people that I walked across America,
Yeah.
would you skip the part between, Chicago and Omaha and then tell people, no, you didn't.
No.
You didn't walk across America. You skipped, you took the train. Come on.
Right. Right.
And the good stuff is here. I think a lot of people skip it because they're not ready to face themselves.
Yes.
Because this is the hard part. And this is not so much the hard walking, it's the hard internal stuff.
Yeah.
So there's still time. They can come back and do it when they're ready. But
That's interesting. Some people do that, don't they? They skip that part, and then I hear them come back and they say, well, I kind of skipped the meseta, so I had to come back and do that section. Why do you find that section so powerful for pilgrims, in your opinion?
Well, because we live in a very noisy world, and we surround ourselves with noise. We never have silence with us ever. Even when we go to sleep at night, we have things in our ears. So, and I'm a mystic, okay?
Yeah.
I believe that silence is God's first language.
Mm.
And if you put yourself in silence, you have to face up to the things that you've been blocking out. And the noise has been blocking out for how long? And that's what the meseta does, is unless you surround yourself with your friends or you put things in your ears, you start to have stuff coming up that you don't want to really think about, or that you've put away and you don't want to. Yeah, it's hard work. But this is what draws us onto the Camino, I think, is our inner self wanting to break out of all the noise. These are the things that your heart wants you to hear. And if you always have noise around you and you're never alone, then you don't ever get to hear your heart. So that's what the Camino's for, in my opinion. I offend people left and right these days because so many people come to the Camino, they've already made up their mind what it is and what they're going to get and what it's going to be like.
Yes.
And don't even try to tell them anything different. Or you're judging me. I'm so judgmental. But anyway, that's who I am. And that's why I think you need to be if you're on the Camino and you want to be a pilgrim, then you need to turn off the noise. You got to let the Camino be the Camino. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, and a lot of people will say, how we walk the Camino is how we're living our everyday life, right? And we get on the Camino, we think we want the solitude and all this stuff. And then suddenly you can almost find yourself listening to music. You can find yourself forming this pilgrim family to where you're never alone. And all of a sudden you could go many days and it's not really like a pilgrimage. It's maybe more like how things are at home for you. So it's interesting how we do that, isn't it?
Well, different. It works different ways for different people.
Yeah.
And some people are much more people oriented, and they
Yes.
find their heart speaks to them through other people. And
Yeah.
so, I can't say that my quiet way is the only way, but I do know that my quiet way has a lot of historical precedent here on this path. So it's worked for many hundreds of people over 1,000 years, and that's undeniable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you don't like it.
Yeah. Do you prefer to walk solo, or do you find that you prefer to walk with a couple of other people? Does it matter to you?
I do. I like to walk with people, but I always find myself wishing I was alone sometimes too.
Me too.
I try to build. When I want to walk alone, what I do is one nice thing about living in the middle of the Frances, I'll walk to one of the albergues that I have to help with. I need to go there anyway, and from here it's backwards. So if you're walking backwards, you walk alone because everybody else is walking the other way.
Yes.
So I'll walk to Nahara from here. It takes about a week and a half. So
Perfect.
And I'm on my own. I meet people, and when I stay at night in an albergue, I communicate with other people, but I don't have to really hook up with anybody because I'm alone. So it works nice. I've found ways to deal. I don't get to do a lot of long distance walking these days, or I mean, long time, like a whole month or anything, because my husband's health isn't good and I can't leave him alone here for too long.
Right.
So and I'm getting older myself, but I try to keep myself in good condition so that if I do need to walk, I can just jump up and go.
Yeah.
And I did get an opportunity this spring to go to Peru and walk the Inca Trail.
Oh, wow.
To Machu Picchu, which was very, very taxing, but I was able to do that. So I'm feeling very proud of myself.
Oh, congratulations.
I didn't die.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
So what made you write a Camino book in the first place?
Well, I'm a compulsive writer. Been a writer all my life, and I still write every day. I don't write as much as I used to. The other work I'm doing now is extremely taxing, and I don't get to write long form like I used to. But I really felt compelled to write the two books, the two Camino things. I've done this book too, The Moorish War. It's my first novel.
Fantastic. I haven't read that one.
No, okay. This one was this is my first book I wrote. I wrote here. I found this story at Santa Cruz over here in Sagun, at the monastery there. And this story is set there in that monastery. But 1,000 years ago.
Okay.
And it's based on a real story of a real woman who was there. A Moorish princess who was taken as the wife of the king and lived it. It's really cool.
Oh, it sounds really interesting.
I had to fictionalize it a little bit because historically we don't have a whole lot of information about this woman, but we have contradicting information about her. But it was a really fun thing to write. And once I got that book written, it took me 3 or 4 tries to get it right. But then I realized, I can write a book length thing. I've edited many of them. I've done a rewrite on many, so I knew I had the ability to do this. But then my own story in 2010 was a really pivotal year here, and every day I write in a book. I got a couple of these here. We keep these diaries. These are cool diaries that they have for businesses here.
Yes.
And I buy one, and every day we write what happened that day, what bill we paid, where we need to be, so we don't lose track of what's going on, right? And sometimes I put opinions. And
pull it. Yeah. Hold it about right there. Yeah, that's perfect. People can. Yeah. Yes. That's a great usage for that, Rebekah. I made copycat off of you.
Yeah,
I love that.
Well, and they're really lovely books.
Yes.
But so I had a good record of us and our experiences all the way back to the beginning. day by day by day. So for 2010, I just pulled the book out, and I like other incidents that were interesting, I pulled from other years, but so it's a little bit fictionalized. But that year was so pivotal, and especially with the pilgrimage itself, what happened with my friends here in town, the life and the death. There's a whole lot of
Yes.
death and resurrection in that book. So it has it has three different layers of things going on at the same time. But it took 2 or 3 tries to get that book right too. But when it did come out, it was really felt really good to have it. If I had to do it again, there's things I would change.
Yeah.
But hey, that's how it is when it's like having a child, you know. You
Yeah.
wish you would raise them a little differently, but yeah, I still love it very much. But I know how much work it is. I'm not sure if I want to do that again. But no, I love the books, and I think they still have a lot of life in them. I have a Spanish publisher who's interested in this book, but I'm waiting until one of the characters dies before I put it in Spanish, or they might run me out of town.
That's true. There's a lot of stuff about your neighbors in there, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Now, Rebekah, you're pretty active on all the Camino Facebook groups, and you're really great about offering advice. And, people have so many questions. And I just wonder, after all these years of walking and living where you live, are there 3 tips that you would say to first timers to maybe put some of their worries aside and get them to just come and walk? What would be those tips you would tell them?
Well, thousands and thousands of people do this every year. The path is so well marked. You can't get lost here unless you really shouldn't be here.
Yes.
The other thing is that the Camino is not for everyone. And you might get here and it just doesn't work for you. And there's no shame in that. And there's a lot of pressure to keep going and going and pushing and pushing. But if you can't do it, it's all right. And that it is a very time-honored spiritual discipline. This is not a great place to come and have a happy, sweet, worry-free holiday. This is a hard thing. This is hard.
Yes.
It's challenging, and it's supposed to be. So, and a lot of people ain't gonna like me saying this because they like to do the sunshine and unicorn thing. But now this is a discipline. It's a spiritual place, and if those things bother you, then there's lots of other places you can go for a nice holiday. So that's me. But there's nothing like it in the world.
Well said.
Yes, it's fabulous. It'll change your life if you let it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just had this experience in Machu Picchu. How I've never walked that, but I've heard it's quite a mystical hike. Could you compare and contrast a little bit of your experiences from, how you feel about the Camino compared to that walk?
Well, this is only 5 days. It's completely curated for rich people from outside the country. I met exactly one Peruvian who was doing the hike. Everybody else was from outside the country. So it's all very much a product. The Camino is better.
Camino's better.
Oh yeah. Camino has so much more to offer you because it's so much more about what you put into it. Because anyone who's very fit can climb up to Machu Picchu with all these people here to help you. But because you're paying them to help you, and they're very professional. But the Camino is a lot more dependent on your own impetus and your own desire to make it. And you're also much more dependent on the people around you. You're not paying them to help you. You're helping them, and they're helping you because they want to, because this is why we're here. And there's a whole lot more real brotherhood and fraternity going on this trail than on Machu Picchu one, although it's really cool and it has all this wonderful historical vibe, and there's fabulous ruins to poke around in. It's really excellent. I
Yes.
recommend it to anybody who loves to hike in historic places, but it's not a living faith anymore. The people who built that are gone.
Mm,
Their religion that they practiced is not practiced anymore that I know of.
right.
So one of the great things about walking this trail, the Camino, is that the faith that created it is still alive and still
Yes.
active. And
Yes.
you can still plug right into that and get all of that. Wow. Um, but and what's one of the sad things about the Inca Trail was that the people are all gone.
Mm,
There's no Incas. The people, their descendants are there,
yeah.
but the people who built it have all been decimated in so many ways.
Wow.
So I mean, I hope I'm not insulting the people by saying these things. This is what I took away from it. I've
Mm,
tried to listen very carefully. Um, but I found that, well, the Camino and it's a lot about what we bring to it too. And
yes.
we don't always bring great things with us. Hopefully we leave them behind as we're on our way. But
That's right.
but it's an interesting place to be because it's always evolving and always changing. And as
Yes.
the pilgrims change, as the trail changes, and as the world around us changes, because it's not in a vacuum. It's not Disneyland. It changes with the world and with Spain and with
Mm,
Europe. So and we have to let it change in many ways, but we also have to guard against damage that is
yeah.
always trying to come in and either capitalize or destroy things.
So
So
how do
it's
we find
a
that
balance.
balance? Yeah, how do we find that balance, Rebekah? Because I've heard from a lot of veterans over the last couple of years that the Camino's changed. It's too crowded. It's too this. It's too that. Um, and
Well,
this evolution's happening, no matter what
mhm.
anyone says. And I wonder how you would advise us to find that balance. How are you finding that?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're trying to make a definition of what is a cultural heritage. What is it we're trying to guide here and guard, and what's worth keeping and what's worth letting go. Um, and I try to take a long view of it. This thing has been here for more than 1,000 years. People have been doing this for who knows how long.
Right.
It's going to be here for a long time after we're gone. This is just another one of these big waves of popularity, and soon this too will fade away and we'll be
Yeah.
gone, and all the albergues will be gone. There's still going to be pilgrims walking. There's still going to be people doing this. So we can't get too wrought up about things. But
Mm,
there are a few things that we have brought to it that we really should preserve, and that is the equality, the the great leveling of having albergues, that
mm,
poor people can walk as well as rich people. We don't
yes.
have this kind of packaged thing like the Inca Trail, where only very well heeled people can do that.
Yeah.
Um, we have the impoverished dancer walking down the trail, and we have the hippies um, and the kind of the bums that we see now and then, and we have the dentist from Iowa, and we have the professors and the teachers and the students. We don't have nearly the number of poor people we used to have, I have to
Mm,
say. It has
really.
become very gentrified. And a lot of the really poor people are priced out of the market.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of the very basic albergues are gone now because people don't want to stay there.
Right.
And so it does evolve. So how do you keep the balance? So you have to you have to have an inner life, and you have to keep your own balance first. And then you see what means something to you, and you ask yourself why that means so much.
Mm,
And um, and if it really is, if you have a some other people around you who you respect, um, who concur with you, then maybe there's something here you need to respect and guard against. Or you see something happening and you listen to your gut and you think, well, they're strip mining this hillside next to the Camino. Is that legal? So you call your friends and say, what's going on? And they say, I don't know, let's find out. And then you find out it's not legal. There's someone doing this in the great Spanish tradition of do it first and find out later if there's a permit needed. And then you can say, wait, stop, don't do that. Don't pave that piece of trail. You can't do that. There are laws that apply to the Camino de Santiago as Patrimonio Mundial. It's UNESCO listed property. So there are laws, but people don't apply them. They decide not to regard. And so that's one of the reasons that fix is here to guard these. We're not always very successful, but sometimes we are. So
yeah. So Rebekah, looking at pilgrims, you see pilgrims every single day. You're a pilgrim yourself. Could you just give me 3 words that you think describe what it means to be a pilgrim?
A brother,
in
the bigger sense of that.
Yeah.
Humble, I think.
Humble.
And a seeker. So there's 3.
Good words. Good words. Yes. Now, one of the things that really touched me in your book, Furnace Full of God, is, you have so many different people showing up at your door, and you just open that door up and you invite folks in. And, sometimes we can get quite judgmental as pilgrims as we're walking. We see someone that doesn't quite fit the picture, right? Maybe they're not wearing the latest sporting clothing, or, they're walking barefoot, or there's something different about themselves that maybe makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable. I wonder if you could talk about any experiences that you've had with that would help us to see that sometimes we can't judge folks by what we just see on the outside.
Okay, well, I sent you a video, and I hope you can share with our friends out there.
I will.
There was a man. Then should I tell you this story now? Okay, yeah. We open our church in the summertime for pilgrims and for people who want to see the church. I was last summer in August. I had the keys, and I went over to open the church in the morning, and there was a man asleep on the steps in front of the front door of the church. Big, tall, thin guy, a black man with yellow hair, kind of scary looking, and clearly had slept the whole night out there. And I had to wake him up to get him out of the way because I had to open the door, right? So I kind of gave him a little shake and said, excuse me, can you move out of the way? And he was very happy to oblige. And I opened up the door, and he was very happy to come into the church. Spent a good bit of time in there. And he came out, and I introduced myself, and I asked him if he was a pilgrim, and why was he sleeping in front of the church? And because he could have slept, there's 2 albergues here in town and a porch, and I think he could have slept at our house, but he said that he didn't have a place to sleep, and he liked sleeping near the front of the church. And so, okay, fine. And then I asked him, are you hungry? Which is something I ask people who maybe are hungry. And he was. So that's so I took him home, basically. Patty, my husband, came and took over my place in the church and gave him some food and put his clothing in the washing machine. And we started to talk, although he speaks all French and I don't speak French, but we did that Camino thing. You kind of work your way around it.
Right.
It turns out this man is a member of the Corps de Ballet of the École de something something in Brussels. He's a professional dancer.
Wow.
And he's on the Camino between seasons or something, between gigs. He doesn't have a lot of money, and he's doing this because and it keeps him in shape, and he's a very devout Christian. And as we talked a bit more and more, and there was music playing on the box, and it came up to Balthazar's feast. This dun 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 dun. And he just lit up and said, "I know this piece. I know it. We danced this." And so I said, "Dance, dance." He got up and he started to dance. It was magic. It was
Wow.
just magical. He's in this beautiful man doing this beautiful movement on a beautiful morning. And I thought, I love this place. Life is so beautiful. It was one of the high points of the entire year last year to have this man in the house. And the neighbors wouldn't speak to him. The pilgrims treated him with suspicion and fear. And actually you would give him money to not stay where they were. They thought he would be a thief, or he frightened people. And he said that there were a lot of other pilgrims who were perfectly great and lovely and supportive. So this kind of leads me to think, it gave me a lot to think about it. I've met a lot of other pilgrims who suffered from other pilgrims. And as the pilgrimage becomes marketed more and more to people of, more upper income levels, it becomes more white and more upper middle class.
Yeah.
And the people bring their own prejudices with them. And there's not always a lot of tolerance for people who are scruffy, or who are kind of hippy dippy, or who maybe are poor.
Yeah.
And this is something I think the newer pilgrims need to know. There's all kinds of people on the pilgrimage path. They all come from different socioeconomic levels in different countries, look like you, or smell like you, or think like you, or eat like you.
Yeah.
But this is their Camino too.
They
have all of them as much right to be here as you do. We need to remember that this is not my Camino. It's our Camino.
Oh, Rebekah, I love that. This is our Camino.
Yeah.
What a great reminder for all of us.
And the Camino is not a tame animal either. It's not. No.
Not at all.
No, it's not a machine. It's not a product. It's something we made and something we need to take care of. So
we help make it, and we're also responsible for taking care of it at the same time, aren't we? And each other. No matter what we're wearing, no matter where we come from. I think this is a perfect place to stop. Rebekah, I would love to have you come back to the Camino Cafe. I think I could talk to you for hours about so many things. We're so excited to have you coming to the second book club meeting, the Santiago de Compostela book club. We can't wait to talk about Furnace Full of God. The group is so excited about this book, and I'll be giving more details at the end of the show for folks to find out more about that. But thank you for coming and playing 20 Camino questions. It was hard to just, stay to certain questions, because you have so much experience on the Camino, and I think the Camino is a better place for you, having been a part of it. So thank you for everything you do for the Camino and for all the pilgrims that walk it. You have really made a difference. So thank you on behalf of the entire Camino community. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you guys have such a high tolerance for boredom.
Hardly. All right, well, stay on with me, Rebekah. I'm just going to close out the recording. Thanks, everyone, for coming and watching or listening to 20 Camino Questions with Rebekah Scott. What a pleasure to do this.
Las cosas que necesito en la vida ya están aquí. I am free as a bird now, with my feathered wings. I am free.